Hey class, we're going to go ahead and move on to part 2 of inequalities. I'm going to go ahead and erase this. All right, so now we have 1 over 4, blank space, and 3 over 4. Okay, we can see which one's greater, which one's less. We can see it right away, but we kind of want to use some ideas just in case we don't know what these fractions are off the bat, right? So let's go ahead and we're gonna convert these into things we know. We know that 1/4. You should know this by now, right? That 1/4 or 1 out of 4 is 0.25. Okay, this is just something we should know by now. 3/4, we actually talked about that last time. 3/4 or 3/4 of a dollar, right? We know is 0.75. Okay, so again, we're using the decimal values to compare these two numbers together, right? And that's okay. Let's look at the one we start on the left side. 0 and 0 doesn't help us. Move on to the tenths place, which 2 and 7. We know 2 is less than 7, so this whole entire thing is less. Remember, you use your number line to help you remember. These are the less numbers, right? That's why this is a less than symbol, and these are the greater numbers. That's why they're the greater numbers, okay? That's why that's less than. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next example. I'm going to go ahead and erase this. Make sure you have this written down. All right, we got 7 over 8, blank space, 8 over 10. Okay, now we may not know what these fractions are as decimals, so we got to figure them out. Let's go ahead and do that. 7's getting rained on. Where does it want to go? Inside. I'm going to do this over here to this side. 7 on the inside, 8 on the out. 8 into 7. 0. Line up our decimals. 8 into 70. 8 times. 8 times 8, we get 64. 70 minus 64, we get 6. Bring down another 0. 8 into 60. 7, 8 times 7, 56. 60 minus 56, we get 4. Bring down our last 0. 8 into 40. 5 times. 8 times 5, we get 40. 40 minus 40, we get 0. So we end up with 7 over 8 equal to 0.875. Okay? Now, 8 over 10, we should know that that's 8 tenths. But again, if we don't, we can go ahead and do that as well. 8's getting rained on. Where does it want to go? Inside. 10 on the out. 10 into 8, 0 times. Line up our decimals. 8 into 80, 8 times. 80 minus 80, we get 0. So we end up with this. 0.8. Okay? Now, we're going to go ahead and compare these. So, again, start on the left side. Ones place, zeros. Start in the tens place, 8 and 8. Again, does not help us. And then now, we go to the hundreds place. There's a 7 here. There's nothing here. What number is equivalent to nothing? 0. And we can clearly see that 7 is greater than 0. So that means this whole side, 7/8 or 0.875, is greater than 8 tenths. Okay? Greater than 8 tenths. All right, so I'm going to leave this example up, and we're going to do the next example on the bottom part, right, down here underneath. So the next example is negative 7 over 8 and negative 8 over 10. It's pretty much the same example as up here, except both of our numbers are negative this time. So this is actually negative 0.875, and this is actually negative 0.8. So we gotta come up, we gotta see this visually sometimes. It kind of gives us a better understanding of what's going on here. So I'm gonna draw a number line. On this number line, I'm gonna have 0 and I'm gonna have negative 1. Because these numbers are between 0 and negative 1 because they're both negative, but they're not quite negative 1, right? So we got to understand where these are. So if we draw this out, we know the midpoint of this, right? The very in the middle of 0 and negative 1 is negative 0.5, right? And we know even between -1 and -0.5, we have -0.75, right? So again, we had in the middle, -0.5, and then to the left even more is -0.75, right? And so we can clearly see that -0.8 is closer, which is about right here, and -0.75 is a little bit more closer to -1. Okay, we can see that. And remember, if the number's more left, it's more less. If it's more right, it's greater. And so we see that -0.8 is actually more to the right, which makes it greater. So this one's greater than this one. So that means this is more to the left, right? -0.75 is more left, which means it's more less. Okay, we got to plot these on the number line. We got to see where they land, right? And again, the key part here is the more left, the more less. Let me actually write that up here. So you can write that on your paper. The more left a number is, the more less it is. Okay, it's important to remember that. Okay, so that wraps up our comparing numbers using inequalities. Thanks for watching.